joining us on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line after taking some time away from his family on personal time off, which is always greatly appreciated on the Mercedes-Benz Vans phone line. The Sports Illustrated MMQB writer and chief NFL information man, none other than Albert Breer. How are you, Albert?
I'm good. I heard part of that story, and I can tell you guys that last week I got drilled down below by an aluminum bat.
Got to be careful.
It didn't feel so good. Yeah. It was. I was doing kind of like the underhand throw to my 5-year-old. He hit one and let go of the bat as he hit it. It was an unfortunate incident.
You know what, Albert? It's something you just got to shake off. It's Father of the Year material. It's character building. It's character building. So
yeah, I mean, I guess if he ever wanted to know how to take me out, now he knows how.
So let's jump into it. What is happening today with Deshaun Watson, the NFL, and the Players Association?
Well, I think the best way to kind of do it is to back up a couple of weeks. There had been some settlement talks, and this is actually more common than people realize. That there often is, to avoid a lengthy appeals process. Settlement talks when we're in a case like this, those didn't go much of anywhere, and the main reason why is the NFL insisted on at least a year suspension, and Deshaun Watson's side was not going to accept a year suspension. So talks broke down about 2 weeks ago. Last week, this hearing was scheduled. And today, Sue L. Robinson, the former U.S. District, was jointly appointed by the NFL and NFLPA, is going to hear cases from the NFL, the NFLPA, and then Watson's side. And, after that, I think you guys have probably been over this process enough the last few weeks that she's going to make a recommendation on penalty, and then it'll go to either the commissioner or his designee. If there's no penalty, it's over. But if there is any sort of penalty, then the commissioner or his designee can alter that penalty.
So why would there be three sides in the room? Watson has his own personal rep in the room. Is Rusty Harden? Why? What is that? That's allowable, I guess.
So basically, the way you want to look at it, the NFL is obviously presenting its case and what it's recommending, as sanctions here. The NFLPA is in there to basically legislate any matters of collective bargaining. So anything that applies to the CBA as it was negotiated a couple of years ago. Jeffrey Kessler was in the room to negotiate to make that argument, and then Rusty Harden would be in there to argue the facts of the case on behalf of Watson.
And Jeffrey Kessler is representing the Players Association. I guess he's the Billy Zabka to the NFL's Ralph Macchio, right? Pretty much to use that.
Right.
I guess that analogy for those.
Yeah. I would say so. Yeah. I mean, he's been a thorn in the league side for a long, long time.
Well, he's the guy. He's the guy that the NFL wanted to have kicked out of the collective bargaining agreement in conversations in 2011 when I lost all my hair on the Total Access set, and you were standing on a street corner in Washington D.C. like you were a lamppost. So
that's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and he was the one who. I mean, and the league has often kind of positioned him as being a divisive force in these things, which is why they tried to remove him from the process. But I mean, to their credit, the union does feel like having somebody like that is important, and there's a reason why Kessler is paid very handsomely for what he does. There's a reason why he's been hired by unions in other sports.
Okay. He's effective. He's incredible. I mean, he's terrific at his job. He really is. He's a goat when it comes to unions and things of that nature. So, what is the union's case? Like, we clearly know what the NFL's case is, and there's been a lot of stories. Mark Maskey of the Washington Post, I believe it was last Friday or 2 Fridays ago, saying that the league wants a year, and you're even hearing like an open suspension, indefinite suspension that the league might put on the table there. What's the Players Association case going to look like?
One thing I can clarify for you guys too on the league side, what it is under the CBA is termed banishment, which basically means Deshaun Watson would be banished from the NFL. It would be as if he's not a player at all, and then after a year, he could apply for reinstatement, which, in a lot of cases, like when we've seen banishment in the past, it has wound up being a year. But, I think from a logistical standpoint, it's a little different than just like a flat year suspension in that he has to reapply to get back in and go through a process to get back into the NFL. So that's what the league is going for. The union's case here is interesting because it relates to the cases of the individual owners and the way that the league has handled cases of individual owners. And the three names that they brought up, and I know people have pointed at Jerry Richardson. That one doesn't really apply here because Jerry Richardson almost immediately decided to sell his team. So there wasn't really room for sanctions in that case because he was gone so quickly. But with Snyder, with Jones and Kraft in their individual cases, and then, of course, what's happened with Snyder over the last 2 years, the union is going to make the case that suspending a player for a year based on the premise that owners are held to a higher standard wouldn't be equitable to the way they treated those three owners over the last 3 years. And the other case the union is going to make here is that the NFL has really had a hard time, finding credible facts here. And we can argue till we're blue in the face on that. Like, I'm just telling you what the union case is going to be here.
That's why I'm asking.
That like the league today is only going to present the cases of 5 women. And I believe one of those women is not among the 24 plaintiffs. So they're going to basically present 4 out of 24 at most, and then 5 out of the number would be 66, right? So the union's argument is going to be, why were you only able to present the cases of 5 women if there are supposedly 66 out there?
And if I'm the league, I'd respond, you want to sit here all day? Because we can.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I'm not arguing their case. I'm just telling you what their case is going to be.
You're right. Exactly. And if I'm the Players Association, I mean, that is an interesting point that, other owners have been accused of misconduct and they didn't have to sit out a year, although you can go back and forth about whether Watson's misconduct is the same as the misconduct that has been alleged of the owners in this case. I mean,
right.
So what happens when it's all placed in front of the independent investigator or judge, and when does she rule? Like what happens next after today?
Well, she could rule. I guess I don't know if the wording would be quite the same from the bench. You know what I mean?
Yes.
So I guess she could rule this week if she wanted to. When she's done hearing, she could also, take all this under consideration and deliberate.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we've sort of all been looking at is like the idea of a bad news dump, right? Like, as you've been around this for longer than I have, Rich. I mean, Friday is sort of the high holy day of NFL bad news dumps. You know what I mean? Like the Friday right before the 4th of July. So I understand why people think that. I just don't know that Sue Robinson is going to adhere to that timeline. I don't know that it's really in her interest at all to spare the NFL bad publicity, so I don't know that it's that predictable when she's going to make a ruling. She could make a ruling, like I said, like as soon as after she hears all the cases, she could take it under advisement and just, kind of sort through some things. And then, when she makes a ruling, she'll recommend it to the commissioner, and the commissioner then, which is the really interesting part about this, the commissioner could, if he wanted to, just decide that he wants to do what the league wanted to do all along and alter her punishment. The only way he can alter the punishment is if there's no punishment. I don't think any of us expect that, So in all likelihood, Robinson's going to hand her recommendation over to the commissioner, and then the commissioner is going to have to make a decision on what to do with it, or hand it over to his designee, which would be somebody he would appoint to make that decision for the league instead of him. And
so he can up the penalty to whatever the league wants to do anyway, right? I mean, right. So although, is this the first time this has happened? I mean, did Calvin Ridley go through this process as well for his year-long suspension for his gambling mishaps and misdeeds?
Yeah, I think, and I you know what? That's a good example that I hadn't thought of, so I haven't dug into it.
Sure.
But it does seem to me like that happened so fast that maybe there was a settlement in that case.
Right.
So, because generally, if these things drag out and you don't hear about a penalty for a while, in a lot of cases, like that's because there was a settlement. You know, if it does drag out forever, then that means in a lot of cases all the appeals have been heard and the process has been gone through. So it is certainly the highest profile since the 2020 CBA went into effect. I'm not sure that it's the first.
Albert Breer here on the Rich Eisen Show, senior NFL reporter, Sports Illustrated, the MMQB. And if this was in any way, shape, or form managed or coordinated, I would say bravo to Baker Mayfield and his team. That on the day that Watson's having his suspension hearing, right? On the day that that's happening, Baker Mayfield is holding a youth football camp and talking. He did actually say something at his youth football camp. He could have declined to say anything, but he said something. And he basically said that it appears in his mind that this is a mutual decision from both sides to move on, that no matter what is going to happen from this hearing, if it's a full year suspension, he said that somebody would have to reach out to start that process from the Browns, although he just thinks that that's just not going to happen because of the mutual interest in moving on. So what are his options as we're about to hit July? Like, where does everything stand with him and a future address potentially?
So here's my understanding. I think he's being forthright, and I think if this is a 6 or an 8 game suspension, I think the Browns move forward and continue to try to trade him. I wonder if it's a full year suspension, if that changes things, because I don't have information that would lead me to believe that it would that it would change things. It's just my instinct on it, that. You signed Jacoby Brissett and you're comfortable with him as your starter for 6 or 8 games. Are you comfortable with him for the whole year? I mean, we saw that how that went in Indianapolis in 2019, right? He was okay, but faded down the stretch. So are you okay with that if you're the Browns? Can he be more than just a placeholder? Or is there a scenario out there where the best thing for everyone involved, for the Browns, for Mayfield, is to reconcile? Again, my information to this point is that Baker Mayfield's being forthright, that Baker is 100% done with the Browns, and that's the way that he's operated the last 3 or 4 months, and that the Browns, based on their actions, have not held on to him as any sort of insurance policy. They're holding on to him because they can't move him because of his number. And the fact that they were willing to take on, and I've been clear about this, about half of his salary to facilitate a trade tells me they were never looking at him as an insurance policy. They were always looking to get rid of him. Could a year suspension change that? Here's, I think, the way you have to look at that, Rich. Is it the best? Is Baker Mayfield, if Deshaun Watson's out for the whole year, is Baker Mayfield the best quarterback for the Browns this year for this team? I think the answer is yes.
Of course.
And then on the flip side, is Baker going to find another situation where he's going to be put in a better position to get paid in 2023 and find a new starting job somewhere else in 2023 than he has in Cleveland right now, barring an injury somewhere else? No, right?
Well, hold on a second. I'll give a little pushback there because
I don't know.
Because Albert, why would Baker Mayfield in a sport where your next snap could be your last? Why would he put that on the line for this team? If you were just referred to Jacoby Brissett, can he be more than a placeholder? Well, yeah, the answer for Mayfield is you don't ask that question. Of course, he can be more than a placeholder, but technically he is still a placeholder. And so why would he put himself in a situation to have J.J. Watt, even though they're not going to play each other, I'm just using that as an example, track him down and hurt his shoulder just like last year? Why would he fight through injury knowing that he needs to prove that he can do it again? And I'll show it again, I'm not injury prone, I got to get out there again. Why would he put himself under that pressure for this team as opposed to finding another spot and proving he can do it in a new spot? That wouldn't he get the same contract? That's what I'm saying.
The answer to that is yes. The money's the same, but Carolina, do you think Carolina's a better situation right now? You could make an argument, I suppose, in that they drafted Aquanu, so maybe that helps their offensive line issue. They've got some skill position talent, but Matt Rule's job's on the line. You could have a coach fired there in midseason.
Which is why if I have a bad game, he's going to go right to Sam Darnold because,
Right.
What skin do we have in each other's game? Really, not much. Right. I just met the guy, and then on top of it, in Seattle, why wouldn't you go there? Pete's not going anywhere. I mean,
no, I know, but
the expectations are so low there, so low. If you get this team even in playoff contention, that's the same thing as you performing well for a team that already told you we're done. That's my point. That's my pushback on it.
Yeah, and I understand what you're saying, and I understand the emotional part of it. I just think, look, Seattle, maybe 2 rookie tackles starting, right?
Yes.
Carolina, rookie left tackle. Seattle, what's DK Metcalf's mindset? Carolina, Matt Rule's job status. I think you just add all these things up, Rich, and I don't know that there is a better situation. It's I guess it's a marriage is falling apart where you make it work for the kids, right? With Cleveland and Mayfield, where it's we'll make it work until they graduate, and then then we'll go our separate ways. I just sort of feel for Baker, he knows the offense. He's going to be playing behind one of the best offensive lines in football. He I think has a pretty good skill position group around him, one of the best running games in the league, and a team that should contend through the year, and I think if you're another team looking at Baker as a potential starter past this year, how good would it look if Baker Mayfield was able to turn the other cheek? And everybody who's ever said he's immature, right? Everybody who's ever said he's childish, everybody who's ever taken shots at who he is as a person, if he's able to rise above that and play really well for the Browns in 2022, wouldn't that make him look great?
I hear you.
You know what I mean? So again, all my information to this point, Baker's done with the Browns, and the Browns are operating 100% as if Baker Mayfield's not going to be in the roster in 2022. Just saying, if it's a full year suspension for Watson, I can see where you logically look at it and say, you sort of make that deal with the devil, both sides. You know what I mean? You make that deal with somebody you weren't going to make a deal with, and you go forward because you think there's a great mutual benefit on the other side of it.
And I guess they could, name their 2022 championship video, "Let's just use each other."
Yeah.
That's the rallying cry for 2022. Let's just use each other. One more year.
This, Rich, think about this. If he plays well, then the Browns get a 3rd-round comp pick for him, letting him go this year, right? There's just, and again, this is me.
Yeah. No.
This is purely me saying this because, again, my information has said they're done with each other. But it does make sense. I think that there is a scenario where it makes sense. Again, only if Watson's suspended for the whole year where the cap space is already used. And this isn't a situation like San Francisco where, getting Jimmy off the books is going to facilitate the signing of a Bosa or a Debo. They're set. They're okay cap-wise. They can carry him. I just think that there could be a mutual benefit to, if you're either side, holding your nose and going forward and saying, let's make the best of this.
Albert, thanks for doing this, brother. I appreciate it. Albert Breer here from the MMQB. I said that to avoid being sued for copyright infringement. Because if I said the MMQB, would I get sued by Ohio State? Would I get sued? What do you think? How does that work? Have you looked into the fine print?
I don't know. Because I'm an alum, can I start charging royalties? Is that the way this works?
No. Did you miss this? Did you miss this? That Ohio State got the trademark for the word "the"?
Yeah. No. I'm asking if I can start charging royalties too.
I don't know. Ask your alma mater. I just don't.
Maybe my wife's sitting right here. Maybe I can get her to count I could have put you on speaker and got her to count the number of times you said "the," and we get kind of have a little deal there where it's like a swear jar, Yeah,
I know.
To
here,
avoid paying royalties, you can give me a little check.
I wonder if maybe Michigan could try and trademark the word "an." Just something else, another article that everyone uses. Very, "an." I don't know. Just try that one out. I'm sorry.
Know what? We're the only one. I realize though we aren't the only one that has "the" at the start of our name. I noticed.
It's gonna be a battle.
I looked at Penn State. I noticed their press box. It says on it, "The Pennsylvania State University."
Oh.
So we're not the only ones that does it. We're just the only ones that do it right.
Well,
Wow.
That's what I was looking for. That's what I was looking for. Okay. Thank you, Albert. Take care of yourself.
All right.
Be well.
All right,
Albert Breer, everybody. That's what I was looking for. I was fishing for him to say something like that.